All right, welcome back to the Dirt Beers podcast. It's your host, Beef and Jonathan. This is episode 9. We're going to start off this episode with a quick recap of some stuff that's been going on in the dirt world, talk about some feature winners, talk about a couple of different things going on, the wing situation out of Volusia, and just a couple updates. But, Jonathan, how's it been going, buddy?
Good, brother. It's kind of starting to feel like racing season even north of the border, which is kind of crazy to say with the amount of snow we just got like in the last couple hours. I'm looking out my window and I'm like, oh, I got some shoveling to do. But yeah, no, I don't know, man. It's been going good and it's good to have racing back. It feels good. And I guess where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the World of Outlaws? Because I thought when I was looking over the winners earlier today and thinking back on everything to do with everything down at Volusia, I was kind of like, man, there's a chance that the I don't even know what you want to call them, but the NASCAR guys, for lack of a better term, they might be stinking up all the shows and all the headlines. It seems like that's what we're heading for. If Volusia was any kind of, preview of the season.
Yeah, Volusia always the opener for the World Outlaws to get the points rolling. I mean, it was the talk was two guys that aren't even following the tour and are just showing back up, and one guy it was his first time in a sprint car in 2 years. So, but to start it out, the opening night, Carson Macedo hot out the gate with the JGR crew, gets it done in the 41, gets out of his car in victory lane and limps to the front. Still
Mm-hmm.
got that leg issue going on. But it was cool to see him, even with that wheel, to the win on the first night.
Yeah, that was kind of. I think Carson Macedo is one of those guys that I don't want to say he's going to upset the apple cart because I think that's kind of a slight to how good of a performer he's been over the last couple of years. But if there's going to be drivers taking the fight to gravel this year for that actual World of Outlaws NOS Energy Sprint Cars title, I feel like Carson's going to be one of those guys that has a shot to at least get into some races and upset the apple cart in terms of both even in high limits and in World of Outlaws, where he's going to be able to take some points away from some guys, right?
Yeah, for sure. And the other two winners on the weekend, you got Christopher Bell. He's back, first time in a sprint car, gets a mini gator. Did he? Seems like he never even left a sprint car cockpit, to be honest with you. He just wheeled that 6.9K to the front, which, I mean, the 6.9K is definitely top tier equipment and doesn't race that much, so it was cool to see him wheel that car specifically to the win.
Yeah, that was one of those kind of. It was kind of similar to how I felt about his performance at the Chili Bowl, where I was really like thinking, okay, here we go. Bell is back in a big way, and he's just going to stink up the show. And, there's a lot of talk about rumors and battles in terms of maybe a friendly rivalry between himself and Larson when it comes to the dirt stuff, the way things are going, the way things are setting up for this year, and even in the Cup side of things, too, I guess. But you have Bell come out and win in the Thursday, and then Larson comes back and wins Friday, Saturday, right? So
Yeah.
kind of crazy that those guys stunk up the show the way they did.
Yeah, you got two guys that aren't even following the tour get the first 3 out of 4 wins. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I believe Larson's actually, I think it's Larson that's actually leading the World Outlaw points technically right now.
Yep.
And what I mean, obviously he's not going to be on the whole tour, but um, talking about Larson, actually no. Before that, I want to talk about the crash. Bill Baylock had a pretty nasty crash
Mm.
at Volusia on the first night. The car was pretty mangled, and actually the floor pan came out of the car. I'm not sure if Bill's feet came out of the frame, but he did end up going to the hospital. They posted just yesterday on their social media that Bill is doing okay. Just no broken bones, but has some slight muscle damage or something like that, or tissue damage, but should be good to go by the time the World Outlaws hit the track again. Now it's calling, he had that big wreck last year at Eldora where this whole rear end came out, the fuel cell went flying, and all this stuff. And now there's talk about the fuel cells getting a rule update from having 4 points of attachment to the sprint car frames to going to 6. Um, I I don't think they should do 6 points physical attachments to the frame because everybody's gonna have to get new fuel cells, new molds get made. It's just gonna be a big pain in the ass. What they should be doing is making fuel cell tethers mandatory, where you're tethering from the top cap to the frame with tethers, just like a front end tether, rear end tether, to keep parts from flying off the car. I mean, if those 4 bolts break, you still have the tethers to hold the fuel cell at least relatively close to the car so it's not going flying.
I like that idea, and that was actually something I was going to ask you about. Obviously, between the two of us, you're the guy that's kind of wrenching on these race cars more often than not, and I know that you would know how that kind of rear end geometry works and what kind of solutions they could do. You mentioned the tethers. What kind of complications were you thinking with 6 points of contact from the way you guys would have to work on race cars, or even just the building process?
I mean, the biggest thing would be that they would have to come up with some kind of way to modify the fuel tanks as they are now. Because if you can't do it without, like, I don't know, because they're fiberglass, so you gotta add two more mounting points, because the mounting points right now are built into the fuel cell. Like, the brackets butt up to the fuel cell and get bolted, and the fuel cell is threaded for the bolt. So if they go the way of making new fuel cells, it's just everybody's gonna have to get. They're gonna have to have a grace period, and then everybody's gonna have to get rid of their old stuff. And where it's gonna go, I don't know. And then everybody's gonna have to buy new fuel tanks. I really don't think that's the solution. I think they are, a lot of companies already sell these fuel cell teller kits. I think you just make that mandatory in all sprint car classes, and everybody's got to spend. I mean, I don't know how much they're worth. Probably just over $100, maybe, maybe a little bit more. But I mean, obviously, any update to the rules for safety is a good thing. I just think they could make it a little more cost effective for the smaller teams and stuff, as opposed to making you have to buy a whole new fuel tank.
Yeah, I like that sentiment, and I like where your head's at with that. Something else kind of wanted to talk about, where while we're on the World of Outlaws side of things, is obviously Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson. Larson, we know, and we're kind of used to what he can do when it comes to climbing the behind the wheel of a sprint car. But how surprised were you with Bell's performance immediately, right off the hop? Not just the Chili Bowl, we kind of have talked about that, but now getting into the sprint car game, and it being a pretty heavily specialized field, right? If you're racing on the in these races on the NOS Energy Tour, like, it's the best of the best guys, right? So especially this early in the year, there's probably some extra high limit guys that are making the show and all that sort of stuff. So how do you feel? Like, I don't want to sit here and say I'm surprised, but it's kind of hard not to be with his absence, the way he's picked it up so quickly again.
Yeah, I mean, anytime out of the sea, especially 2 years, there's going to be a little bit of rust to knock off. For a guy like him, there really wasn't that much. He looked good both, like, all the nights, and just and yeah, I mean, it is a little bit surprising that he did it so quick.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can't say that I didn't see him at least podium a couple nights or a win for sure in Volusia. Like, he's Christopher Bell. Like, he loves dirt racing, and I'm sure he was just thrilled to get back behind the wheel and win for sure.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of maybe fans of stock car racing and NASCAR, they know the name Christopher Bell and they know he's got a dirt background, but they may not be as aware of his skill level and accomplishments because of the fact that Joe Gibbs, that's been the policy that he hasn't been allowed to go race, right? So I kind of think that maybe he gets slept on a little bit on both sides. Like, if you're new to dirt racing, if you just started watching in the last 4 years, you wouldn't really know Christopher Bell as a dirt guy and his accomplishments. And if you just started paying attention to Christopher Bell because he's kind of started to make himself one of those upper echelon national stock car racing championship title contenders, it's easy to kind of overlook what he's done and think that this is a bit of a surprise, but I don't think we should be overly surprised with any of it right now. My guy, I call him my guy because I seem to pick on him a little bit, David Gravel. Again, he was perfectly fine. I said this at the start of 2024 as well. I was not disappointed, but he's just, he just quietly does his thing. And whereas I would like to see him, start the year off as a winner, but I guess, what do you have, like, I think 4 top 5s or something like that
Yeah,
in the
he
four
was he
races.
was
I
still
really can't
good.
give him a hard time.
Yeah, he was still good. The two was still good. I mean, it wasn't a win, but still a
Mm-hmm.
good start to the season. And I mean, it's a long season, so there's Volusia is just a small part of what can happen. But I mean, if he finishes worse though, then you're into the, well, is he going to be able to make it up later on? Um,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I mean, he ran good, so I would still say he's probably, as of right now, still the championship favorite.
Yeah, he's got to be. I have a hard time. Like I say, I like what I saw to Carson. Carson is running the full tour, I believe. He's
Yep.
committed, right? So
Yep.
So for him, like I'm looking at the points right now, Carson had a pretty good start to it, obviously winning, playing hurt, so to speak, but three top tens in four races. You can't really complain about that if you're Carson battling through injury and
Yeah,
you're sitting 40 points back of Larson. We know he's going to fall out of things. Ryan Timms, we know that he's going to probably drop off a little bit. I don't think he's made the commitment for the full schedule.
no,
So, you're really looking at Macedo only being quick math here, 24 points back of Gravel for the points lead. That's not bad
yeah,
after the first four
no.
events.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to David and Carson for sure. But I think we got to watch out for that 83 car. I think Buddy is going to be fast all year, even if he wasn't as fast at Volusia.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll be up there mixing it up with those two for the championship.
Yeah, and that's another thing where I talk about where we have this early in the season at Volusia. You've got guys that are not going to be there each and every week, not going to be making the grind, and that's where Buddy can take. What do you have? One top 10 of the four races. Now all of a sudden that's maybe one top five or two top
Yeah,
fives, and the rest are top tens. Right when you start subtracting some of those guys that are going to be either going high limit racing or maybe just showing up for the opening part of the show.
yeah.
What do you want to get into? Do you want to get into the wing, I guess, or you want to go into
Yeah,
speed weeks?
well, we'll talk a little bit about the wing. Obviously, big thing out of Volusia. Paul Silva, another trick up the sleeve. The 57 gets unloaded the first night, has the normal wing on it for hot laps, goes out for qualifying, wing switches. Unpainted wing, lettered up. They come back in, wing gets switched again for the heat races and the features. So they dubbed it the qualifying wing, which isn't uncommon. There is a lot of World Outlaw teams that do switch between the wings. You just wouldn't know it because they're all painted the same and relatively look the same. You have to be looking closely to know what's been changed and different looks, different geometry, that kind of stuff. But it was plain as day because Paul Silva wanted everybody to know it was unpainted and everybody knew it was a different wing. From what I saw, shout out to Dirt Tracker. I watch Dirt Tracker every day, but he had some good side by side photos. The sideboards, a little bit different configuration. The right side a little bit lower, left side a little bit of a different shape. And then the biggest thing was the belly of the sprint car wing. Normally they have a pretty big curve. This one way flatter, not as much of a curve to let that airflow get through and clean air. Um, I mean, he didn't set the world on fire in qualifying, but it was definitely talked about like he did.
Yeah, it's almost like I think of that T Rex car that ran and that Jeff Gordon won the All
Yeah,
Star
yeah,
race
yeah.
with. Well, like everybody remembers it being so quick and it got spanned from NASCAR and stuff. But if you actually look at how it performed majority of that race, it wasn't like it was the dominant car by any
Yeah.
means. It was quick and it did great things and obviously ended up being a winning race car that they deemed not illegal by the rule book, was going to be legal the next day. I don't see why this isn't kind of something similar where they're testing something, they're on to something, they're trying to, have a designated aero kit for those quick qualifying laps when you know that the car, you only have to make it, two laps or whatever to get your time in. You don't have to drive the thing for a whole race. I don't know. It's ingenuity. And
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't sound like the tech barn had any kind of issues with it. So
No, the wing was well within the World Outlaw rules. He's just searching to see the limits, what's
yep,
fast and what's not. And that's his job as a crew chief, especially for Kyle Larson.
absolutely
Um,
right.
but we'll get into just a little quick recap of Lucas Oil Speed Weeks. Tyler Bruning wins the Lucas opener at Golden Isles before the next two nights get rained out. Tyler fast at the end of last year and fast at the beginning of this year again. RTJ wins two in a row at All Tech after Golden Isles, and Devin Moran gets one win in the three nights that they were there. Then the Lucas Oil guys head to Ocala Speedway. They just finished up there 5 nights of racing. JD and Devin Moran each get two wins apiece, and RTJ gets one. So a lot of the same names there, with RTJ getting 3 wins, Devin getting 3 wins, and JD getting two. And I believe JD is leading the Lucas Oil points right now. So good start for those three guys.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think any of that is a surprise, really, right? I think Devin might be if you have a surprise. Like I'm going back and looking at his 2024 here, 13 wins, 72 top tens, and at 81 features. So he's going to be a constant contender. But I'm looking for that win count to maybe get a little higher this year. I think Devin Moran could be a guy we're talking about as maybe pushing up on 20 wins. Like, does that sound
Yep.
crazy to you?
No, I think I would 100% agree with that. He's got the speed right now. If he can keep it up, I definitely think he breaks the 20 win.
Yeah, I think it's really possible. I think there's a couple other guys. Like, I've got my eye on Troutman too. He had a couple of strong runs, 3 top 5s already, and 10 top 10s in the events that he's already run this year in different series. But I mean, I think he's going to be one of those guys that's like maybe the next class down from maybe the elites of the elite, like Morin and like I already
Mm-hmm.
said, Davenport, that sort of thing. So he's probably the driver I've got circled. Is there anybody else after the first couple of races that you were maybe circling that's a little bit further down, maybe in the power ranking, so to speak?
I think I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Garrett Alberson this year. Guy's fast, got a couple podiums and a win.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the Lucas Tour, but he does have a win. And yeah, he's just fast right now. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
consistent in top 10s, top 5s. I think he's going to be one to watch.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, especially with 2 top 5s already and 9 starts on on the tour. That's kind of the one thing that you have to kind of maybe I don't want to say love more than the sprint cars, but I find the late models there's a little bit more parity going on right now. Obviously, Davenport, Moran, RTJ, same names at the top of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
Davenport's got 8 top 10s already and 9 starts on the year. Like it is a little bit top heavy, but I still think when you look through the field there's enough guys that can creep up there and surprise and give good runs. And that's kind of the thing I think we can all maybe celebrate and give cheers to the late models for is just the diversity of talent in it. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and who's going to be that contender that takes it to those top 3 or 4 guys with, even if you want to extend Overton to that in terms of the late model, Lucas Oil late model guys.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Okay, do you want to get into? Let's break down our dirt draft leagues we got going on now. Obviously, like we said before, we're starting some dirt draft leagues on the app. If you want to join, you just got to download the dirt draft app, sign up for their services. There is a fee for their services to use the app, but we do not charge to join the leagues. We have 3 leagues now. We got a World of Outlaws Sprint Car, World of Outlaws Late Models, and now a Super Dirt Car Series League that starts tonight, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just gonna go over, let you know who's leading in the late models right now. We have 2 races in. Uh, B Kearns 1 is currently leading with 822 points. I believe that's Gordy's buddy
Yeah, I
from
think you're right.
yeah from the last episode that asked him about the St. Louis Blues losing.
Yeah.
And I'll give you where me and Jay House stand at. Jonathan's a little bit ahead of me right now in 10th place with 640 points, and I'm in 11th with 616 as of right now. And then if we go over to the sprint cars, we are 4 races in. I know Jonathan was kicking himself in the butt the other day because
Yep.
he did forget to set his lineup for 2 of the 4 nights. But right now, we got, I'm just going to say Peyton. His first name's definitely Peyton.
He's a Frederick. That's got to be Frederick, right?
Yeah, okay. Peyton Frederick. He's leading with 1,524 points right now. And actually in second is B. Kearns 1 with 1,424. So he's doing good across the 2 leagues right now.
Kearns, he's kind of the fantasy sniper here, apparently,
like
man.
it.
Like
Gordy, who did you send over here to us? Jesus Christ.
Well, you know what I want to know is, or what I want to point out is, I'm looking at the sprint car stuff, and we're talking about, Bell, Larson kind of dominating the thing. Now, only 3 guys in this league have picked a winner, because you can see where your guys have turned out, right? So unless it's counting the fact, like I guess that's your win overall for the year, maybe, as opposed to like the drivers you picked who win where they finish. But either way.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. When they announced that they were going to do these leagues, I just made them, and it was like, you know what, let's just do it. So I'm not 100% sure on how it all works, but trial by error for this season. But for the sprint cars, at least right now, I'm in 6th with 1,302 points. My brother's just ahead of me.
Oof, sibling rivalry.
Oh, yeah. And Jonathan is down in 13th with 574. But he's only had 2 nights.
I'll be back.
Yeah,
I'll be up there. The points percentage. The points percentage is good. I'm fine. I feel confident about my skills. I just have to actually remember to set the lineups, which I have the same problem in fantasy hockey as well. So it gets the best of us and all that sort
Yeah,
of stuff. But like I do like this offering. I think that is kind of, I don't want to say it's not a major story by any chance yet, but I think it is a pretty low key story. The gambling aspect, like I've had friends who are texting me and be like, "Oh, did you place a bet on whatever draft or
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
betting service
yeah,
to win some money?" And like I got a guy, he's like, "Oh, I just got great odds on Christopher Bell. He just cashed for me. $2 bet to return was this," and I was like,
yeah,
"Sweet." So as somebody who loves I love the gambling. I love it in all sports. The fact that dirt racing is now in this, I think this is going to be a big. I think this is going to be a really big thing, and I'm really interested to see how it plays out the rest of the year. The other
yeah,
thing I'm waiting for is the first big bust of a
yeah,
crew guy or somebody
yeah. I
making some bets
know.
for somebody else. Something's
It's
going to happen, right? But
Yeah, there'll be a story for that for sure.
yeah,
But if you want to get involved in the Dirt Draft leagues, obviously download Dirt Draft, but shoot the page Dirt Beers a message, and I can get you all the information on how to sign up, passwords, all that stuff. It's absolutely free to join after you pay to use the Dirt Draft service from us. And I'm working on it. I think we're going to have for each league a little trophy. And each year we're going to get a little thing put on it of the winner. And then we'll do prizes for the top three in each league as well.
hook you up with some swag.
Yeah. So the last thing on our list here before we get to our guest segment this week, I think it's time for another draft, Jonathan. So I think we're going to draft the Dirt Racing Crown Jewel events.
Hmm.
We're each going to get 4 picks. I believe I went first last time, so you have the floor.
Oh, man, you got to give me first pick. I mean, I is there any choice but to take the Knoxville Nationals as the first round pick? I think you got to go Knoxville first overall.
I think it's. I don't think there's a other one in my mind that I wouldn't pick first overall.
Okay, so give me Knoxville. I'll take Knoxville for my
Okay.
first pick. What are we
Okay.
doing? 4 rounds for this?
Yeah, 4.
Okay.
So my first pick, I will stick with our late model buddies. Give me the World 100 at Eldora.
I wanted the World 100. Damn, that's a good pick. I like that pick. I don't know, man. Dirt racing, crown jewels. I'm trying. There's one I want to pick, but I think it's too early to go for it in the second round.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take the Chili Bowl. Are we counting the Chili Bowl as a crown
Yeah,
jewel? I think you're right.
Chili
You
Bowl's
got to call.
definitely a crown jewel event.
All right, I think I got to go the Chili Bowl this early
Chili
on.
Bowl. Okay. My second pick, I'm gonna favor our local boys here in our northeastern area. Give me the 200 at Super Dirt Week.
Okay, I caught a sigh of relief. I was worried there with what you were going to go for. I am upset that you took that pick.
I'm going for the hometown crowd to give me the win on this one. That's why I put that in there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, modifieds, especially center steer modifieds, big thing for where we are in the world, right?
Yep.
So obviously, the 200. I mean, it would be a little bit better at the mile, but hey, you know what? Even at Oswego, I think it's still a pretty spectacular event. So that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. All right, I'm gonna leave one on the board that I'm thinking about taking.
Okay.
And I mean, to some, this probably might not be a crown jewel, but to me, it feels like a pretty special event, and it's pretty cool to be not just in attendance for, but also an event that to be involved with covering is pretty epic. Give me the Northern Sprint Car Nationals.
Okay.
I gotta do it. I gotta pick one of our Canadian races.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a crown jewel here. I mean, it is a crown jewel. It paid 30,000 a win last year, so
it is the crown jewel for Canada, really, right? Like if you're gonna win a race up here, that's the one you want to win.
Yeah.
It does, attract some bigger names in terms of 360 wing guys that you might see. Obviously Sam Haverteep was kind of one of the bigger ones that we've seen over the last couple of years to make runs at it, right?
Yeah.
But for me, that race is, and I think really kind of being on the inside when I was covering, your guy, Mike Bowman, when he won his, and also, swept the crates that year too. And also won earlier in the year for some bigger money too. That whole kind of thing, it really made me realize that we north of the border actually have our own crown jewels and races that are worth celebrating. So for me, I got to make sure that's on my list.
Okay. My third pick, going back to Eldora, give me the King's Royal for my third pick.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up. You know what though? Like, if you're gonna have, you gotta have it. You gotta have it on the list, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
there's no
if
way it cannot get drafted.
if you weren't gonna take it, I was gonna take it next. I mean, so what have I got? I've got a couple sprint car races. I got a midget race. I think I'm gonna take. Now I don't know how to qualify this event,
Okay.
but I want the World Championships at Charlotte,
At Charlotte
the World Finals,
World Finals. Okay, yeah.
because it's a 3-night event. So I don't know if you does it count as a crown jewel because there's not one big race ahead of it.
I mean, it's for the championship, so I would consider it. I would consider it a crown jewel. I don't know. A lot of people, it's on a bucket list to win there. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'd give it a pass. I would say it is a crown jewel. Yes.
Yeah, I'll save it or I'll take that. And then if it's, if it costs me the championship, I'll give you one more at the end here as an also rain if you don't take it. But
Okay.
I'll let you take your final pick here.
Okay. My final pick is gonna be the 4 Crown at Eldora.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good one. A couple that I was thinking about that were on my list when I was going over this. The Big Dog 100 at
Yeah.
Kokomo.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of fun. We've been talking about it so much on the show. I think the Dome is almost a crown jewel event at this point,
I would say yeah.
right? So I had that on my
Definitely is for
list.
Gordy Gundaker.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
absolutely.
that.
Hell yeah, that guy is passionate about it, and yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, rightfully
Yeah.
so, right? And then maybe the other one I was thinking was maybe the Show Me 100, but
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't pick it because I think it would be controversial because it's not a yearly event and it's only happened a couple times. But I was gonna say the million at Eldora.
yeah, I was thinking that too, right?
But I wasn't sure what you'd be like. Oh, it's not a yearly event. And I was like, well, you know.
I mean, I wouldn't bust your balls too bad on that one. I don't think, because
But
you didn't take the Dream, right?
no, I didn't take the Dream. I took the World 100.
Yeah, right. So that's why I was kind of like, because I was thinking about the Dream too.
Yeah, the Dream's a
Because
big one too.
that was kind of the first crown jewel that maybe besides the Knoxville Nationals that I paid attention to because of the prelude to the Dream, right? With the NASCAR guys being involved, and then I remember like back in the day, like Dave Despain and Wind Tunnel covering that one pretty heavily and talking a lot of dirt around that time of year.
Yeah.
So that one was definitely on my list to draft too. But I'm happy with my team. It's not the best one. I don't know if you're gonna give it a win, but maybe you should we should make a little like post and show your team versus my team. Maybe get a little vote. Maybe if you head to the Dirt Beers page on Instagram, we'll put it up in the stories and you can vote. I guess you can even do polls now, I think, on the actual like posts. But either way, we'll figure out a way to get your opinions and you can let us know who won between myself and Beef.
You pick who's the winner. But so that's all our update for this week on things that are going on in the dirt world. Next up, we got our guest segment, and this week we got Brady Forbrook, crew member for Rico Abreu Racing, also wheelman himself, wheeled some sprint cars. So we're gonna get into that, talk about what it's like being a crew guy on the High Limit Tour, and wheeling some race cars. So we'll get into Brady. Okay, we're back with our guest segment for this week, episode 9 of the Dirt Beers podcast with your host Jonathan and Beef. This week, we got Brady Forbrook, crew guy on the Rico Abreu Racing car. Brady, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So we always get the show started with a beer crack. So everybody go ahead. Me and Jonathan both rocking the Bud Lights tonight.
Mm-hmm. I find
with the Coors Light.
I find that logo that or the score bug they were using at the Super Bowl this weekend, I think they stole it from the Bud Light font. That's what I was looking. I was looking earlier today. It looks a lot like. I'm like, I don't know if Bud Light paid extra for that or what, but some little subliminal messaging. So that's how I ended up with a Bud Light in my hand.
Brady, are you a Chiefs or Eagles fan?
Last weekend I was an Eagles fan. Otherwise, I'm not.
I think everybody was an Eagles fan last weekend.
That was fun to watch.
Go Birds.
Yeah. So basically, always first we like to get into the background on our guests. So Brady, just tell us, how you got involved in racing, what it was like coming up in racing, and maybe a couple stories you got from being a kid and to where you are now.
Yeah, I got involved in it with my dad, and then obviously he got involved with it through his dad, which was my grandpa. And I grew up. I mean, I think I was only a few days old at my first race, and I was actually born in September, and my dad was at Gold Cup, so he wasn't even there. He was out racing Gold Cup. And then, I mean, my earliest memories just involve being at the shop, bothering Dad, don't touch this, don't touch that kind of deal. And then helping Grandpa. He owned a Polaris dealership in town there in Morgan, Minnesota, and he owned that for over 50 years. And you just kind of fall in love with working on things and being able to fix certain things when you can, or helping on somebody's lawnmower. And then I remember one day Dad said, "No, get in the truck. We're gonna go look at this lawnmower." I was like, "Okay." And then we ended up just going and picking out a go-kart to race. So picked up a motor on the way to the street shop, and he said, "What color?" And I got to pick the color and the number. And then yeah, I was 8 years old at that time, and got to do some racing. We only did like 10 races a year because he did a lot of on the road travel stuff. And then yeah, I got to follow him around when he let me. He got me out of school a few times when I was older to go along racing with him. And then obviously the more you're around it, the more you love it. So I wanted to be a race car driver since I've been in diapers. So I've had toys running around and bothering people. I remember asking drivers about this or that, or doing tear offs, or just being annoying usually at that young of age. And then yeah, I don't know how, but talked Dad into letting me do it when I got older, and luckily got to do a little bit of it. And then obviously it's a really expensive sport, so can't afford to do it. So best thing to do is work on them. So, and Rico is probably one of the best people to work on them with. So it's been a blast.
Do you remember what it was like that first time you were able to strap into like kind of a full size race car and take some laps besides doing go kart stuff?
Yeah. So I'd race flat carts. So we just I grew up on a track that was under 7 second laps some nights, and then some tracks were close to quarter miles. And then yeah, but the first night I got into, it was a 305 at Jackson Motorplex. It was a half mile, and we had Greg Baker just make sure it ran first because I knew nothing about it or nothing. And he went around and I'm like, that looks pretty easy. And then you get in there, it's like, whoa, everything's moving. I never did spin out, but I didn't make a consistent lap all night. And then we figured some stuff out. And then a week later, that was when Dad was with Todd Quiring and Big Game. And Danny knew the promoters of the track only 20 minutes from my hometown there in Redwood Falls. And they did the track up that night. Danny was driving the water truck, and we went there and tested one night. I think it was a Wednesday. Todd was nice enough to let him get off work, and we went and tested there on a Wednesday and made some laps. And after that, it became pretty second nature. It was just like getting used to movement and stuff. And after that, it was just wide open. So I got to race 10 times in 2015, and then a few times the next year. I think I raced like 30 times within 4 years. So we didn't get to do too much, but when I get to do it, it was always a blast. So I enjoyed doing it, and we didn't just go there to race. We went there to win. So it was always fun. We did really good together, and yeah, that was pretty much it. But the first time ever in one it was pretty wild how much stuff moves in a short amount of time. So especially only in a 305. So
yeah. Talking about your racing career, what you had the special aspect of being able to race with your family and for your dad. What was that like racing for your dad? And did you enjoy it? What were your thoughts on it?
yeah, I think I've never raced for really anybody else. I mean, I guess Todd, but it was more so Dad's direction or whatever you want to call it. But it's really stressful because it's you're there all the time on the drive home, at home. I mean, if you do something, you're not allowed to forget about it. So
Yeah.
it's stressful, but it's fun. And I mean, the more you look back on it, the more you're just thankful that you got to do it that way. So a lot of people don't get to. It wasn't easy, but it was fun.
Yeah, you mentioned the fun aspect of it. Now wrenching on race cars, are you obviously there's a lot of fun to be had behind the wheel, but when it comes to wrenching on race cars, are you enjoying that arguably as much as its own unique challenge that keeps you pretty entertained? I would assume most days.
Yeah, it's always going to come second place to driving. Driving's is something I've always wanted to do and always will want to do. And but just not being able to drive them, you always want to be at the races, doing something, learning something. And the way Dad brought me up was you got to know everything down from the nut and bolt to the steering wheel tape. So growing up that way, you didn't want to grow up that way, but now I'm really glad I did, because now you just really appreciate every aspect. far as how stuff is built, how nice it is, how you do it, how other people do it, and then just doing something and then applying it after you see it happen. So you learn a lot more watching than you do driving, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's I'll always want to do that, but working on them is just as fun. I think you get the joy of winning, but I am way more nervous working on them as far as when you get ready to drop the green than you ever are driving. So, but watching is you're not in control, so you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. What growing up, was the goal if you were not going to be able to be the guy behind the wheel all the time? Was the goal to be a crew guy on a high level team, or did you ever have any aspirations to do something completely different than racing?
No, I mean, I never thought of being a crew guy. I always just thought of driving and working on them. And I mean, the goal would be to be like, would be just to drive and own it, kind of like Rico does it. That'd be awesome. I couldn't imagine just being able to drive it and then be like, hey, that's mine also. It's not just somebody else's. But no, I mean, after, you kind of graduate high school and stuff wasn't really working out the way I wanted it to for racing wise. And it was either you never get to race or you get to work on them and never race. So I chose to work on them. It was just second nature. I don't even have to think about it. It's just if you don't get to drive them, you got to work on them. It's just that just entailed into what I've always done, and I mean I grew up around it, so I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah,
when the bug bites you, got to keep
yeah,
around it as
exactly.
best you can,
Yeah,
right? So,
nothing else
my
is
question
exciting.
is, my question is, when it comes to like the stuff with Rico and getting hooked up with them, is there like an application process? Like,
Yeah,
how do you get hooked up to go and work
yeah.
at RAR?
Well, funny story is in 2020 I graduated, or 21 I was graduating college. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go on the road. I'm gonna start working on race cars. I just want to travel. It was a lot of big races coming up, obviously. And I applied to Keith Coons Motorsports, and man, I didn't hear back for it had to be 6, 7 weeks. So I just figured whatever, it's not gonna get it. And then all of a sudden my phone rang, and it was an unknown number from Indiana. So I just answered it, and it was Jay Drake calling saying, "Hey, you still interested in coming to work here? Keith said he needs a right hand man, and he wants you to come here and work for him." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, give me a day to think about it, and I'll let you know." So I called him back, and I said, "Yeah, I'll start in 1 week. I'll be there." So I drove down there, and actually I drove to Dason Pursley's house. It was in his house in Oak Grove there, and he sent me this location, and I've never been to that part of Oklahoma. And I was like, "Man, where am I going?" And got off the freeway, and you're going down some roads, and I was like, man, I just not really think I'm in the right spot here. I think I almost text Keith like, "You sure I'm going here?" And I drove into Locust Grove, and my AC wasn't working in my pickup at the time, but I drove in there and got out, and I seen Keith that Dason's dad had the shop doors open. It was like 100, and I mean a lot, probably 100% humidity there. Obviously, everybody knows that. And I walked in, and Keith's dripping sweat, shirt was soaked. And I was like, man, I came to the right place. This guy's working pretty hard. So yeah, then got to meet Keith there and Dason's dad, and then met Dason and his mom and his whole family, both of his sisters and his brother, and their family's so welcoming. And first day I ever was there, they would have given you the shirt off their back for you. So it was really breathtaking to just go there and be like, whoa, these are really good people. And then yeah, we did a lot of micro racing, midget racing with Keith that year, and they basically took me under the wing. I stayed in Keith's motorhome with them. Everybody tried to scare me, to be scared of Keith, but I was like, man, he was probably one of the coolest people ever to hang out with. And being around Clint and Shonda Pursley, and it was like we had our own little family going up and down the road, and won a lot of races that year with Dason, and from from Oklahoma to Pennsylvania to everywhere. I mean, we did really good that year, and he did really good USAC midget racing, and then obviously he had his accident there, and I think it was November there in Arizona, and that was pretty
Okay, yes.
scary. And then that same fall, I got the opportunity. Dad said, "Hey, we can go racing next year if you really want to come back." And I said, "Yeah, I want to drive." So I told Keith like, "Hey, man, I want to stay, but I mean, the only other reason I leave is to go race again." So I went. Keith's like, "Yeah, man, no problem. If we can ever work something out to come back and forth, let's do it." So I was like, I really appreciate it. But Keith really taught me a lot. The thing he really taught me is you can't beat hard work. So when we first started out and we win, and then all of a sudden you go through rough patch and Keith would go through his, you could tell he's got his thinking face on, and everybody knows what that looks like. But man, we'd go work, and man, we'd just get good again, start winning. And I don't know, something about Keith and hard work, and he doesn't take a lot of credit for it, as far as like he'll think you did it. He didn't even do it. That's the crazy part about Keith. And then doing it with Clint too, it was the funnest summer I've ever had in my life with Dason and his dad and his mom, and then Keith. We traveled everywhere, never stopped laughing, and we always showed up ready to race. That's what was fun. But then yeah, I went home and raced for that summer. I went tested at Knoxville. It was supposed to be season opener there on a Friday night. Testing went good. We had knocked rust off, whatever, but we were still really fast. And then it rained out. Actually didn't rain out, but we went home because it looked like rain, but it rained out when the green flag dropped. So yeah, so we were watching at home, and then the next week, we were quick time all the way till when Clint Garner went out and he beat us. We almost had the track record that night. It was really cold and whatever, and then it rained, I think 2 or 3 weeks in a row again, and then it was Jackson. Jackson had 360 race. It was their opener, and I think it was MSTS. And we qualified really good, and then heat race didn't go as good, and then coming to the green, or taking the green, flipped all the way down the front stretch. So broke the block on the motor and junked the car completely. First time I ever flipped a race car. And it's funny because I always told Dad I was flipping. It didn't even hurt because, you play football and stuff, and you take some big hits. But I was like, man, it didn't even hurt. And then you get out and the car's just in a – you're like, holy smokes. But yeah, that was kind of an experience. But yeah, that wasn't a good night that way. But yeah, then that kind of put the season on hold, and Dad had a driver fall through. I don't remember who it was, and I don't know who was begging, but somebody was begging him to put me in it. So we went to Knoxville in a 410, I think, the week before the All-Star show or something, and that went about as expected. It was all over the place, and 410s are just a whole different ball game. So we were terrible that night. I think I almost spun out qualifying, and then we got to race a couple more times, and then we didn't race 360s again until the 360 Nationals, and then ended up making the feature that year. We ran about 14th or something. Started right next to Sunshine in the feature there in the back. We ran the B, but then yeah, after that, went to Jackson with the Outlaws and made the show, and I think crashed with 2 to go running with Casey Kane back there. So yeah, I didn't get to do too much racing, but yeah, and then after that, we kind of figured like next year Dad's gonna have to get a 410 guy, and he kind of said, I'm not gonna have much time for 360 stuff, so it may just be maybe a handful of shows. And I was like, well, instead of not being able to race, when you don't race as much, you're not going to be as good. So the risk for not being good and then tearing stuff up is always higher. So I just figured, like, instead of wasting money or potentially just wrecking a bunch of stuff, I'll just go work for somebody. So then I didn't know who at the time, and I was doing some farm work with some people from home there just to pass time and make some money because didn't make none racing, obviously. I texted Keith, and it was his give back race at Port City there, and I said, hey, I'll come help if you need some. And he goes, yeah, come on down. So I went down there and helped, and kind of was thinking, like, I'll probably just come back there and keep working for Keith because I don't know who else I wanted to work for. And I went back, helped him at Shootout, helped him at Chili Bowl, and coming back from Shootout, I got the Shootout flu, and I remember waking up. I stayed at the house, the person's house there in Columbus, and waking up from a direct message from Rico on Instagram, and it was like, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but give me a call. I'm like, man, this guy's hacked or something. Like, that was back when,
what did I do?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even reply. I was like, oh, he's hacked, whatever. Somebody hacked his account. I went to work at like 11 because I just got done throwing up, and Rico's there, and I was like, oh, shoot. And he goes, hey, I messaged you. And I was like, oh, I didn't even see it. But I just didn't even reply. And he goes, well, if you're not doing anything next year, I'd love to have you work for me. I said, yeah, right now I don't have any plans. I said, yeah, I'd love to. And the year before that at Chili Bowl, when Dason was hurt, I helped Kaz Townsend on Rico's car, and I mean, it was cool. I always wanted to work for Rico. Obviously, everybody does. He's really fun, and yeah, we won our prelim night, obviously, and didn't do so hot Saturday, but it was fun working for him. He's a blast. He's kind of funny. The way he talks is different about racing and everything. So, and he goes, "Yeah, I'd love to have you." So, yeah, I'll think about it. So I finished maintenance up the micros there, and I went drove with Dason and Clinton in the motorhome down to Tulsa for the Chili Bowl, and he come up practice day. I thought he goes, hey, I'm really serious about you coming to work for me. So if you really want to, I'm more ready to hire you. I said, all right, well, let me just give a couple of days here. I'll think about it. I was
Yeah.
tired, man. It was a long 2 weeks, shootout, driving, and sick, and so I thought about it during practice day. And I'm like, all right, Rico, yeah, I'm serious about it. He goes, are you actually serious? I'm like, yeah, I'll come do it. And he goes, all right, well, we'll set you up. I'll call Rick and Zach and see what they think, and if they want to do it, let's do it. I said, okay. So then I think Wednesday he come back up again and said, hey, we're good, you're hired. Whenever you're ready to start, just let me know. And I said, well, after Chili Ball, I'll help Keith and the guys clean everything up, and then go from there. So then he goes, yeah, here's my number, whatever, and got back, cleaned everything up, and yeah, and then yeah, called me. Or I called him, said, "Hey, I'll start second week of February," and that was 3 years ago. This week, actually, on Friday, it'll be 2 years, or no, 3 years now. So yeah, it was just kind of came out of nowhere. So,
Yeah.
but I mean,
What?
my thing is, I've always wanted to surround myself with something that you can learn something from, and obviously,
Yeah.
growing up with Dad and then going to Keith, you learn a bunch, and then going from Keith to Rick, man, it's just like you got three different people, and a lot of them do it three different ways. But I mean, you learn so much from all three of them. So
What? Speaking of Rick and everybody at RAR, what's it like around there? I mean, I just shared. I don't know if you saw the video that
yeah,
Rico
I just
posted
seen it
today.
actually.
Like, what's it like with all that stuff going on? Like, he is a social media guru when it comes to getting people involved and engaged in his stuff, and just all around a funny guy. But what's the attitude and the what's it like being a crew member for that guy?
Being a crew member for Rico, you just never know. One day he comes in, and the next day is something different. So everybody knows that if you know Rico well enough, one day he says we're gonna do this, and the next day he comes in, and you're like, hey, we're not doing that. You're like, what? Videos like that just don't surprise me.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. He's actually in California right now, healing up from his breaking his wrist there. So, but
Yeah.
he's been bothering us every day. He says, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And then we're like, "Hey, just keep a calm on your wrist. We actually want you to race. We don't want you to be in a cast all year." But he's itching. He's ready. He's excited, and this is probably the longest he's been without driving something since I don't even know. I mean, he's been at the Chili Bowl every year. He's raced something in the winter, midgets, anything, Australia, and not being able to race down there. I'm sure he's kind of nervous himself, but he'll be ready to go. He's putting in a lot of work, and he's making sure he's gonna be ready for this year. He's really stacking up a bunch, and but Rico, I mean, I stay with him in the hotel room when we travel, him and Megan and Gus, and I remember that was his selling point to me. He goes, "Hey man, last thing is if you want to work here, you're gonna stay in a hotel room with me and Megan and Gus." And I was like, "That's fine. I mean, I don't care who I stay with, as long as I got somewhere to sleep, it don't bother me." But now he's kind of funny. He can be talking to you, but be in some other place, and then you ask him about it. He goes, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, I just talked to you about it." But we call him Pac-Man because when he's driving, he's on every rumble strip to the dotted line to anything. So now he's really fun, really good guy. He always takes care of us. That's really a good thing. He always takes care of us, makes sure everybody else is taken care of, and then just the rest of the group we're kind of just a traveling circus, honestly, with how we go. We're not really have a plan. We just kind of show up and see what happens. But the first night ever I worked with them, we won Lincoln. So, and
Yeah.
then we actually mistakenly learned something just by running into Freddie there. So it was kind of wild, but now it's crazy. He's different. How he drives is different. I actually watched him in 2020, been 21 there when I was working for Keith. We were at Four Crown, and there was the second night. I don't remember how he did the first night, but the first night was kind of boring. It wasn't really on the fence. So that was my first time ever racing or being at a race working at Eldora. And I remember Rico was lining up. He was flying around there. I think he started fourth or something. And he just burned the fence down and won the feature that night, the All-Star show. I was like, man, that was sweet. But then you go back there when you're working with him, and he is just something else. He Eldora, it's like he's not even there. It's he doesn't need to watch nothing. You ask you got dirt vision. You want to watch? No, I'm good, whatever. And he just goes around there like I've never seen anybody go around a racetrack. So it's kind of like watching Danny or Donnie go around Knoxville on the bottom. It's like nobody else can do that.
Yeah.
He goes around Eldora all 3 lanes like nobody I've ever seen. It's just the big races. He just has bad luck or something happens, but no, he's amazing to watch Eldora. Places like that, it's crazy.
Obviously, with a guy like Rico that you're working for, I'm sure there's not a lot of times that you're really questioning him or trying to maybe disagree with the calls that he's looking for or the changes he's looking for with the race car. But when you have some seat time experience yourself, do you ever find yourself working with the driver and they ask for something and you're like, really? That's what you want? Is that really going to help you? And you almost have to kind of tell your driver brain to kind of stop because you're not the one who's really driving. So what does it matter what you think anyways, right?
Not. I've never been that way. Actually, it's more so you try to understand what they're saying. As far as you kind of just sit there and you think like, well, if it was going like this or that or what. But Rico kind of grew up racing. He didn't start racing until he was 18, and he never really was told to like, hey, give me feedback on what you're feeling. So I mean, until 4 years ago now with Ricky, never really had to give feedback on what was happening. So most of the time with Rico, you're just trying to figure out what he's saying. So he'll come in and you're like, well, what do you think? He goes, well, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. Or he'll ask Rick, and Rick's famous word is, what do you think, bud? And Rico sometimes will just say, I don't know. So most times we're just looking at each other like, man, what are we changing? But it's kind of funny. Most times Rico's famous thing is he'll come in and he'll take his helmet off quick and we'll get back there. So he'll say, what do you think? And he'll look at the tack. And if it doesn't read what he thinks, he goes, oh, motor ain't running. So our famous thing at short tracks is if it doesn't read $9,000, Rico's going to say the motor ain't running. So that's about all we usually get from him. But Rick's really got him on a line now, or like Eldora or Knoxville. It's more so the car scissoring. Is it scissoring or whatever? And all he kind of really says is it, oh, it's not scissoring or this or that. And you kind of got to break it down with him as far as he'll come in and say, oh, I'm tight, but a lot of the times he'll go in loose and then get tight, just because you're not stuck getting there. But a lot of times you just got to slow them down and not get them. You can get them really tense and frustrated, like second guessing, like, hey, what am I actually saying? But if you just get him relaxed and say, hey, well, what are you doing here? Or what's it doing there? He'll just describe it just like anybody else. It's a different process for him, but ultimately we always work it out. So it's pretty easy that way.
Nice. So take us through your typical during race season, your week, and then take us through a night at the racetrack. Like, what are your duties? What are some things that you're in charge of doing on the team? Just different things throughout the week.
Yeah, I guess we can just lead it into a race day thing. And most of the time, I mean, I usually just do night driving as far as driving the truck and trailer. Zach does probably 80% of our driving just because he's just most comfortable there. And so, yeah, we'll leave the shop. This depends on the hotel, and we'll get to the track around, 1 or 2 o'clock just to be the race to the pits to stand around and get your parking spot. So we'll get there, and everybody will kind of look at each other, stand around, and then you open your door, and then you think about unloading, and then you unload, whatever. By then, it's 2 o'clock, 2:30, and then by then I'm getting kind of antsy. I've always like playing football or any sport or baseball or track. You kind of get built up like, hey, I'm ready to go. So I'll get my bleeders set out, start charging them, and really picky on making sure the Hoosier logos are the same on all 4 corners. So I'll put the Hoosiers up and down and the Weld logos up and down, and I'll get all that sorted and ask Rick, hey, what stagger you want for the 4th time that day, just to annoy him. So. And then we'll have to do. Sometimes we'll wait and be like, yeah, I don't know yet. And then get the tires on that Rick wants and the wheels on that Rick wants, and then get my bleeders charged up. just walk around the car, make sure everything's good, make sure you got enough stuff in the rack for the night, and then just double check with Rick, like, hey, what do you want to drop from here to there? What wheel you want to do if it does this or that, and then after that, about usually high limit about 5 o'clock is the driver's meeting, and so then I'll start lubing the car up, whatever, and making sure Rick doesn't get mad if there's mud on it somewhere I didn't wipe. So I make sure the wing's really good and under the axle's really good, all that stuff, make it look good, and then 5:30 rolls around, and then I'll plug the bleeders in, and Zach will unhook his heater, and we'll push him back, and then I'd push him with the four-wheeler. So we'll go through engine heat, and I'll scrape all the mud and check the air, roll the stagger, and then wait around again, and then hot laps, wait for Rick's last orders, and set the air, push them out there, and hot lap. And if we're any good, we don't change much, and if we're terrible, we usually change a lot. So it just depends. Actually, my first year with him, the funny thing with Rico, everybody thinks he was a short track racer, right? So every big track we went to, or slick track we went to, we were really good. We show up to quarter miles and we sucked usually. So we were at Huset's there, and in the first 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, or no, it would have been Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we weren't that good qualifying. We were just really tight and whatever. And Saturday, we had this plan where if we don't hot lap good, we're going to change a bunch of stuff. And we hot lapped terrible. And we put it on scoring blocks sitting there in the parking lot and changed a bunch. And we were actually pushing. We actually just put tires on it when they put the cars on the track for going out for our heat race. So we were hustling and getting tough on it. And we started second or third or something, and we ended up winning the heat race, and car was 100 times better. I remember Rico almost spun out for his corner just because he wasn't ready for it to do that, And then it rained, and we were going to make the King of the Hill, so Rick got all fired up, man. When we don't do good, Rick gets fired up, especially when people start dogging on him, rocking around the pits, like, oh, what do you think, Rick? You're kind of struggling. Rick got really fired up, and we had all 4 shocks off, all 4 bars out. And we run non-beadlock wheels qualifying just to make it lighter and stuff. So we were all race trimmed out and everything, and we put our whole qualifying deal on, changed gears. We were just getting all dialed in for King of the Hill. And Trevor Canales, who works for Paul and Kyle, we had this kind of joke thing on the chassis down at one time that got screwed up and the stacks weren't down all the way. And there's little slits on your tops, and we were taking weight off, and we were getting ready to go to King of the Hill, and Rick's dying on shocks, and Trevor goes, Rick, you want the slit showing? And he goes, what? He goes, you want the slit showing? He goes, no. Everybody was kind of making fun of us for trying so hard to go fast qualifying, but we actually changed motors, and our engine heater didn't work for some. I don't remember what the battery was bad or something. So we were sitting there and staging. Rico was on Mach 3 with the idle there, leaned it out, just warming it up. And we went out there. We went out first car, and I think we made all the way to 3rd or 4th there or something. And we kind of turned our short track program around. But then we ended up running second to gravel after Buddy blew up there in the end. And that was just one of the nights where you're like, whoa. With Rick, it's like watching him do it with Donnie from the B at Knoxville. It's like Rick can spin a wrench one way and spin it the other way, and you're from the B to the podium, So it's fun. I learned so much from Rick and Zach and Rico all the time, just traveling. And I never got to travel a lot growing up even with Dad. Dad never let me really go, and I had baseball in the summer, and he never let me miss school really. So I never got to go around. So the first year at Rico was a lot of my first times at some tracks, and watching TV, you don't realize all the little things you need to do to be good. And Rick certainly shows all the little things you got to do to be good. And you think Rick has some special race car or some special way to do things or some trick way. Like I was coming in here like, man, they're going to have so many trick cars or trick things. And Rick's honest. He always says, keep it stupid simple. And that's what we do. We have 5 cars in the shop, and all 5 are identical. And everybody knows with Rick, though, we have 100 wings, and all 100 are different. That's Rick's thing. So Rick with his wings and his shocks. Rick's really picky with the shocks. So, I remember one time we were at the Grove for the Summer Nationals when we won that time, and we crawl on top of the trailer, and Rick always says, what do you think? Rick's the most nervous guy you'll ever meet watching. you're like, what? What do you think? I thought we looked kind of free in the dash, you know? And he goes, I put a click in the right rear shock, which is like 2 pounds for Rick. And it's like, oh God, Rick, I don't really think 2 pounds is going to make or break us here. But I mean, the attention to detail isn't crazy. Like we'll win the race and he'll be like, man, that one time he went through there passing this guy in traffic and it did this or that. And you're like, man, Rick, you didn't even notice that, you know? And after the race, he'll sit there and measure things, check things, and the stuff most people don't do. And that's what makes him so good is his notebook is this thick and
Yeah.
there's notes from his first ever time there to his best ever time there. And
Yeah.
he has every little detail. I mean, boxes are that big and he fills them in. So
Yeah.
he's got notes for everything. And that I really realized that's what really makes you consistent and good over time is you think you remember, but you show back up to you're like, hey, what did we even do here actually?
Yeah.
So especially when you race that many times in that many different places and, you're tired from driving. But yeah, I mean, from Rick and Zach, you just learn all the little details it takes to be good. So
Awesome. Well, we're going to get to our, I don't know, maybe, I think it's my favorite segment of the show, honestly, now. But,
You've become a big fan of this, and I
Yeah.
think it's a lot more exciting too when we actually have somebody set a new quick time, which is what we had last time.
oh wow,
Beef, I think it's time we rip the top.
yeah, this is our ripping the top segment. So basically, what's going to happen is I got 4 questions for you, and you're going to answer them rapid fire. They are all food and drink related.
oh wow, all right.
So,
Good thing I'm hungry then.
So last week, actually, yeah, Gordy Gundaker set our new quick time at a 20.3.
Wow.
So that's the time you're looking to beat to take the new quick time on this deal, okay?
All right.
So this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just gonna start asking you the questions. You answer them as fast as possible. I got my stopwatch here, and we'll see if you can do it. Okay?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Favorite drink or beer?
Arizona iced tea.
Favorite truck stop snack and drink combo?
Fruit cup with probably a Mountain Dew.
Top 3 pizza toppings?
Mushrooms, pepperonis, and banana peppers.
Favorite wing flavor?
Honey barbecue.
Not bad.
Not
Not
bad.
bad.
Not bad, but not quick enough.
Really? I thought I had it.
22.3.
Oh,
Just a
Couple
little
seconds
bit
off.
Yeah.
I think you gotta
Put
get
my
Rick to
qualifying
spin the
wing on
wrench
next
the other
time.
way.
Yeah. Put my qualifying wing on next time.
Yeah.
Should have been the answer for somebody's favorite wing flavor, qualifying wing.
Qualifying wing. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Not bad though. Not bad.
Yeah, honestly very good. You're definitely I would say you're in the top 3.
You know what
Sweet.
I'm learning from the show in this segment in particular is how many guys love Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
My thing is on race day I have 1 can a night. And that's what otherwise I don't really drink it, but when we're at truck stops I get one for the race that night. So yeah, I have 1 12-ounce can of Mountain Dew. Otherwise the bigger cans the mixture ain't right, and the smaller cans the mixture ain't right. And definitely not bottles. You got to get the aluminum taste. So
Yeah,
that's my superstition.
absolutely. I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to know a little bit about, you mentioned race day superstitions. Do crew guys, are they allowed to have superstitions? Or are you allowed to, not even allowed, I guess that's not the right word.
I have way too many. That's my problem.
You got too many as a crew guy? I feel like, drivers are always the ones who are going to be a head case or maybe even a crew chief, but
Rico's only one is no Chipotle, and then ever since working with Rick is no Chipotle or chicken on race day. So Rico had Chipotle. Yeah, Rico had Chipotle roasting for Keith at Angel Park and flipped out and broke his collarbone, and never ate Chipotle since then. But yeah, Rick's big on no chicken on race day.
That is
especially no chicken on the bone. So
wow,
we've had a lot of bad experiences with chicken, so we don't know chicken after the race. Everybody asks that. So if you race back to back, you can eat it after the race till you go to bed. But after that, you gotta not do it again. But yeah, the biggest thing driving was I always put the throttle foot sock on before the brake foot. I mean, it's just sometimes I don't really have many driving ones. I guess it was more so just being prepared, like gym things. Like if you don't do 10 pull-ups, you're not gonna be able to, win the feat, whatever. But I have a lot of dumb ones, or I have lucky underwear. Rico and all them always make fun of me, but then I started doing it, and 2 years ago, I think 10 of our 12 races we won, I had lucky underwear on. So Rico got some, and then we had a suit. We had a suit that year going. The Hills Racing suit was his lucky suit, and yeah, Rico's got lucky underwear now. I got lucky underwear now. I think Ernest, Rico's buddy Ernest, even has a set of lucky underwear now. But I mean, Eldora, I have a bag of peanut M&Ms, which is funny because some people say peanuts are bad luck, but I've never really. I guess I don't eat peanuts, but I have peanut M&Ms, barbecue rib sandwich, and a cheeseburger, and a thing of popcorn with a raspberry tea for lunch. That's our Eldora superstition. And then Knoxville, I don't really have one, I guess, because usually at Knoxville we're so busy.
Yeah.
And we're changing a bunch, and the line's always super long. So when I was younger, I always had chicken bites at Knoxville, but not anymore. And actually, last year, I remember we ran second there at the local show to Tasker Phillips, and I was driving home and thinking about it, and I was so hungry, and I was like, you know what? All them nights with Danny and Dad and all that, I think every night I ate chicken bites, we never won. So there's probably a sign there. But Dad always made me get him a Snickers or a hot dog. So that was Dad's thing: Snickers and a hot dog and a Pepsi, little Pepsis. So,
Nice.
but yeah, little things like that, or what hat you wear. I have just race hats. That's what I have. If you don't like, if I start a new hat out, if I get sick of one or it's wore out, and I start a new one out and we don't win, I just throw that one away. Keep going with the old one. Stuff like that. Just certain shorts.
fair enough.
Mean, it just depends what stupid mood I'm in, I guess.
Sweet. So you guys are back on the High Limit Tour, obviously, again this year.
Yep.
What's the feeling like? Is it championship or bust for the 2014 this year? Like, you guys are been close. Do you have that taste in your mouth? Like, this is gonna be the year?
Yeah. Honestly, I think everybody's rule of thumb is 3 years together you should be able to do something. And I think last year we had a lot of build up, and I think we wanted to win. We thought we could win the championship, obviously, and we had a rough start to the year. Not due to our problems, just due to some like unknown issues that we found out actually would have been the last week of June, would have been like July 1st or something. And then after that is when we kind of started our streak going there. But yeah, this year we have big expectations, and as we should. And our kind of our mindset is if we don't, I mean, it's kind of a disappointment. So hopefully we can accomplish our goals and then some. So we want to win all the big ones like everybody else. But I think we've had kind of a wild off season as far as health goes. Rick having a heart attack, and Rico breaking his wrist, and then Australia plans, and then I had to go home to help my dad with some of his surgeries and stuff. And it's just kind of been a crazy off season. But we've been working real hard in the shop, and I think we're putting in all the extra hours it takes to be a championship team. So yeah, I'm excited.
You mentioned, hitting the crown jewel, kind of the big ones. That's obviously some of the stuff that you want to win on the High Limit Tour. But in terms of personal favorites, is there stuff on the schedule where you're kind of circling it and being like, oh, I can't wait to get back to that place, either because, Rico runs good, or maybe it's just a place that you enjoy going, good facility. What are you circling on the schedule?
Honestly, anything Knoxville, I circle. I love going there. Knoxville is like my second home. Growing up, going there Saturdays and sitting in the suites, and then getting old enough to go in the pits and sit on the mule and don't move, And every time you go to Knoxville, it's like I'm driving. I get there and you just want to be in the infield and you want to be the one in there. But honestly, Knoxville, and then Houston, I like going to, since that's kind of close to home. But other than that, I just circle all the crown jewels because the harder the race, the more locked in I am, and the more locked in we are as a team. I love all the high pressure ones, and other than that, it's always wanted to go to California with Rico, so going there was fun. So I'm excited to go there this spring. And then other than that, I'm trying to think what other ones are off the top of my head. Obviously Eldora, but Portsmouth, I think it was Ohio. It's kind of right on the Kentucky-Ohio border. That one was pretty cool. we were really good there too. Anything fast and high banked and able to run a cushion or run a bottom, I'm game for going. So I love all tracks. I don't have favorites or not favorites. Like we went to the ditch, and I remember everybody complaining like, "Oh, it sucks, it's too small." And I unloaded there, and I was like, "Holy smokes, this place is awesome!" So anywhere unique that's kind of just kind of out of the mechanics' hands, and more so just hanging it all out there as a driver is kind of what I like. So Knoxville's, but until you drive around there, it's not like any other place. And then Houston, it's like that high intensity, banging the curb kind of stuff, like Rico style. And then going to port with Rick and Rico is something else. You got to have finesse and fast, and then have the guts to hang it on the fence. So places like that are kind of cool. And I mean, I don't really have favorites, I guess. Lakeside's cool. I just like all the fast ones. The faster they are, the more I like them. So I'm excited to go to that one in Pennsylvania there that nobody really goes to. I forget it on the schedule. And then actually, my kind of newer style favorite would be Utica Rome, New York. We went there last year. Yeah. That Utica place was like running on the highway. So it was slick and everybody hated it. But just something like that's out of the realm. That's you got to be good to be good there, and we won that night. And I was like, man, this place is awesome. So with Rick and Rico again, I mean, Rick does stuff that nobody else does, and that's what worked that night. And Rico, everybody lining up. We started 5th, I think, and we were running 8th, coming out of 4 and running 3rd off the second turn. So it was just one of them deals that worked out kind of crazily. And you just kind of shake your head like, I don't even know what happened, but.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Stuff like Utica Rome where you can go the extra mile to do stuff and not just anything else anybody knows. And then that's when it feels better to win too, because you do things that nobody else is like, oh wow, I didn't even know you could do that. So
Utica. That's like that. We're only a couple hours from Utica.
Yeah, that was cool.
But that's how all our tracks are up here. We have notoriously slick tracks up here.
Yeah, I guess my least favorite would be going into tracks that eat tires real bad, because that's what I do right now, obviously. And you go into there, it's like, man, I got a lot of work to do. So especially when it's hot out and you're like, man, I gotta go back tomorrow. No, other than that, I have favorites, but I don't have any places we go to and it's like, I don't want to be here. But I love racing, and every night you go to bed for racing the next day, I'm just as excited as a driver or anybody else. So we wake up when it's race day, I'm ready to go. So
awesome. So I know you saw I put on the Instagram today, asked for the followers, see if they had any questions for you. So we got a couple.
Good.
You might know this guy, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna butcher his name too. T Canal 7.
Oh, that's Trevor. That's Trevor.
Oh, okay. His question for you: is the ball free?
Yeah, ball's always free. Yeah,
I hope
that's a funny story. That's a funny story. So, every time somebody wrecks or something, sprint cars, they have drive lines with a torque tube and a torque ball. And when the ball is free, your car's free. And we I don't remember how we got onto it, but we were at Port Royal, and I think it was must have been the Tusky or something, because Donnie was there. That's the only reason why I remember. But must have been the Tusky that night. It was really fast and wet, and I remember they had a big pile up on the front stretch, and they were showing us, me, Trevor, and I think Zach, and I don't remember who else standing there. And we were looking at Donnie and the pile up, and Paul was watching. Or no, it wasn't Paul. Oh yeah, it was Paul. I don't remember what. Somebody was watching. But anyways, Trevor looked at me. He goes, "Hey, think the ball's free?" I burst out laughing because I think his rear end blowed out of it and front axle's hanging out of it and wings crooked, and Donnie's on top, I think, the Zemco car, and burst out laughing. And somebody said, it looked real bad. You guys are sitting there laughing, but they knew what it was. They know why we're laughing. But yeah, it's kind of our joke. We'll send Instagram reels back and forth, me, him, and Rico. And like, hey, you think ball's free or something like that? So yeah, I remember sending them something when Larson was riding the wall at Chili Bowl and his midget. They had a picture of him on the fence, like this. And I'm like, hey, what was your right rear ride height right there? Stuff like that. Just stupid stuff. And left front air pressure. And yeah, that's funny. We always say that. So I
We
remember
got
actually last year when Rick had his Hall of Fame induction, we were
yeah.
racing Lawrenceburg. We parked next to Trevor and Paul and Kyle all the time, and everybody knows when the car comes in for engine heat, Rick's got his tape measure out measuring ride height. So Rico pulls in, and Kyle's sitting there idling his, and Trevor and Paul look over, and I seen him, so I took my tape measure to the top of the left rear tire and measured to the wing board. They just burst out laughing at this stupid stuff. So we have fun. We always travel together and do stuff together, and then everybody knows Trevor and Rico together are a recipe for disaster. So we just come up with stuff all the time. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. We have one other one. It was from Miles Brussier.
Okay,
I
I know
believe
him.
that's
He's
how
from
yeah.
California. He works for he helps the 10J guys out there. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
He said, "How did your Trophy Cup debut go?"
yeah. Ended with the left front tire in the face. Actually, yeah. Mariah E's dad, Chad E. I met him through working with Keith, and he goes, you know what? I'll let you race my car at Trophy Cup. So he had another car there, a spare car there, and me and Zach went out there, and we had a week off the first year at Rico, so we were like, whatever, we were either going to go help Rico or hang out, or we could go race. So we got there, put my seat in there, whatever. Actually bought the seat from Jamie Ball at Nationals, and borrowed a helmet restraint from Nate Knotts, who works for Buddy, and Rico got me a helmet. Anyways, we show up there, and first night sucks. Never been Trophy Cup, motor didn't run hot laps. Sucked qualifying, terrible. And then heat race. They reworked the track, obviously. Not really much passing. I wasn't no good. Second night, we were halfway decent. And then we were actually in the B, I think I started 14th or something. And I remember I was up to like 7th or 6th or something. It was like halfway through it. And I was getting a little excited to make the show, like get up there and make the show. I remember going by TK when he's in the 0 car. And I think somebody blew up the lap before in turn 3, and I went in there and I hit the oil patch, spun out, went to the back, and then last night there, me and Zach got really good. Actually, I think it was Friday in the B there, and we got really good, and finally I actually got comfortable and whatever, and I don't remember who the guy was, and I entered 3, like you go into when you run Tulare, when you enter, you're kind of stuck because it's like racing around a bull. I remember I just entered and the guy started flipping. And I'm like, oh no! So you kind of let out of it. You got the breakdown, and then all of a sudden he went away. I'm like, oh, I got underneath him somehow. And all of a sudden, boom, left front straight to the face. So yeah, kicked the frame, ripped the hood off it, I think it broke a stack or something, but never hurt the motor. But I felt bad for Chad. I never want to be the guy to go in there and just ballpark it, race. Not my stuff. That's my style. I never just go out there and hot rod it and ballpark it. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't tear nothing up and until I was comfortable maybe being in contention with something, And then, that happened. But yeah, it wasn't a good Trophy Cup. So, but it was fun still, racing Tulare. Tulare's pretty wild. Yeah.
Nice. One more for me here, I guess, is kind of a dirt event that you haven't got to either race or work on a race car at that's on the bucket list to go and do.
I kind of vintage Gold Cup, I guess. Hasn't really been a vintage style Gold Cup. That one looks cool, the old stories. But I'm super pumped to go to Calistoga. I think they're opening it, so that'll be exciting. Other than that, I don't know really, I guess. I've kind of worked on a lot of stuff, helping Dason sometimes midgets and just walking around his non-wing stuff. And more so, I guess, we race Golden Isles with the Lucas Oil late models, and they're just really, I don't know what you want to call a late model for a sprint car guy. It's just you can dial yourself in, you can dial yourself out a lot faster than you can a sprint car. So I kind of just going through a night with a top tier late model team would be kind of wild, especially at like Eldora when it's all them guys are covering their stuff up and like the World 100 or I forget the other races they got there. But I mean, yeah, probably that. Just going through a high intensity night with a late model team would be kind of wild, I think.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to get a different perspective for sure.
Yeah, especially like you see Ricky Thornton or Bobby Pierce start like 20th and win. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So Bobby Pierce is fun to watch, really fun to watch. He kind of hangs it out there, and Ricky's really fun to watch too. All them guys are really Davenport.
Yeah.
Just something like that, ever since Larson kind of got in, I always, like growing up, you're like, oh, screw them Fender guys, but when Larson gets in there and does good and wins, at Port Royal right away, I kind of got hooked on it then. And then I watch all the weekly races that are live, and then I watch every replay. I don't care if it's Outlaw, Lucas Oil, whatever. I watch all the late model replays. I watch all the midget replays. I watch all the not wing replays and all the sprint
Yeah.
car replays. So actually, it's funny. Like my friends will come over or something at home, and I'll be watching World of Outlaws sprint car replays from 2014 to 19, and they'll be like, "Oh, what happens here?" I'm like, this guy does this, and
Yeah.
like in high school and stuff, I watched every replay. That's what you did in college in my
Yeah.
free time. I just watch replays. So all that stuff. I think late model would be kind of cool to do though.
Cool. So speaking of your free time, this is gonna be the last one. We always like to end it on this. What do you like to do in your free time that's not racing related? You know, are you a sports guy? You like playing golf, doing some other stuff?
I wish I was good at golf, but actually, um, growing up, I was a wrestler, and Dad had me working out 3 days a week since first grade. So I really love going to the gym or going for 20-mile bike rides. So if we're not racing, me and Rico are in the gym together. 5 days a week working out, seeing who can work out harder. Stuff like that, or playing Madden. I love playing Madden or the Outlaw game on PlayStation. Or I'm a clean freak, so keeping the Rico just got a new property here with a house on it. We're building the shop, so keeping the team house clean or the shop clean, or just taking notes, like watching replays. So I don't really have any shows. I watched Yellowstone or whatever and stuff like that, but I'm not really. I can't really sit still. So anything that involves exercise or cleaning my pickup or going to the gym or going to Top Golf, maybe. I don't do much golfing at the golf course because my worst part of the game is driving, and if you can't
Same.
drive during golf, it's kind of not fun. So
It's a little important.
yeah, or just going to the beach or something if you're by one, or sitting outside, or talking to my dad or my grandparents, or calling my sister and bothering her. So yeah, I don't. It's kind of what I do in my free time. I cook all my own food, so cooking every night and stuff like that. But usually I'm thinking about racing 25/8, so not much free time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was a great interview, Brady, and we appreciate you coming on. And hopefully, you guys can get that 24 car to the winner's circle and hopefully a championship this year.
Yeah, I hope so too. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cheers,
man.
Brady. Have
See
a
you
great
guys.
one.
You too.